Propulsion Lab at DP Summit 2024, and I have full house now with me. Look at that, we're barely squeezing into the frame. Great folks from Adyen, Elena, Sergei, and Murat, welcome. It's great to have all of you, and I'm very excited to have an interview with such a panel. This is so cool. I think it's probably one of the few times that we do like three guests, and I like it very much every time because the conversations are great. And this will be no exception, because we're going to chat about the aspect of productivity through monorepo culture, I would say, or approach, which has obviously pros and cons. Mildly controversial, should I say? So it's going to be fun. All right, tell me everything about it.
Okay, I mean, I could start by historically, Adyen, I can't remember exactly how long it was, but 10 years ago, way before I joined, they made the decision to stick with a monorepository. The biggest impact I see in a monorepository is on our culture is about openness. If you want to know how an application works, you can see, you can read the code in the repository. You don't need to get access to another repository. But I think why it's controversial, or the tricky part is keeping builds fast and developer experience fast enough that that they still want this openness without the pain points of long build times, unusable IDE.
So, couple of misconceptions about monorepos that you are going to disprove for me. Every time I need to work on something, I have to check out this tremendous amount of code. It's super slow, and then it unloads in my IDE, and then it indexes it forever, and it slows everything. It would be much nicer to check out just my small project and not the entire thing.
It's always a compromise, and indeed we have a problem that the Git synchronization is slow, and IDE performance is far from perfect, so we need to build custom solutions. We need to optimize our Gradle configurations. We have to find tricky ways how to, for example, reduce the number of dependencies and other things. But we enjoy all advantages of the monorepo. So, for example, we have strong consistency between hundreds of different applications, and also we are moving towards isolated builds. So our main project included thousands of modules, but a few years ago it started the migration, and we built special build infrastructure, which is pretty custom. So teams are have opportunity to migrate to smaller subsets of their modules, and IDE performance is just much better. It requires for sure some effort from those teams, but I believe that in long term it's good.
I have to say that this is something that would be absolutely necessary for every team that works with monorepo. This kind of like, hey, I only want to build my small project. I wonder why it's still like some custom homemade tools and not something that is very prevalent in the industry. I would say the demand should be pretty high for such a project.
We use dynamic pipelines in our CI/CD, and I'm not sure that there is an open source solution for this. So how it works? According to the Git diff, it recognizes which modules are affected, which projects are affected. It builds a dynamic pipeline for GitLab, so GitLab allows you this flexibility and then executes. And it will be great, it will be industry standard for this, but I believe such companies like our and else, I don't know, Google, Facebook, who uses huge monorepos, build their own.
That's interesting that it's not a thing. I'm just surprised.
I think also one of the problems is most people really ignore the problem until it becomes one, and most developers in Adyen, at least for many years, they never encountered this issue. And also developers like JetBrains and Gradle, they mostly optimize over open source projects. I think I know Android is being tested on quite frequently to check IDE performance, for example. But most other developers, they really don't know how to communicate their issues with their workspace with JetBrains. We have a lot more collaboration now recently, but it is quite challenging to think about the security aspect of it, about the sensitivity. You don't want to share your code, especially payment.
If you don't want to share your code, don't use monorepo to begin with. I mean, the whole idea of it, exactly as Elena said, is that everybody see everything. Yeah, that's a hard dilemma and a hard challenge. And okay, so I get it. All the code checked out, but then the IDE and the build tool only refers to some part of it to actually do the job, right? Is it how it works? There are other approaches from what I know. For example, Git submodules. When you live in monorepo, but you actually check out only a part of it. I know what you're laughing. Share it with the audience as well. Yeah.
I've seen Git submodules approach once, and it was, from my experience, terrible episode of my career. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but if somebody had adopted it, it's their choice. So again, there is no silver bullet. You always have a compromise, and you choose one options over another, one advantages over disadvantages. So.
Yeah, no, I'm here with you. Git submodules are just terrible. But, one of the use cases is exactly that. Which brings me again to the question, why are we in this state as an industry, and monorepo is such a common approach, and the tooling for it, like Git submodules, is so terrible. That's an open question. Not asking you for a solution. I'm just wondering why.
Let me guess. I think one of the first adopters of this conception was Google, who built their own solution. If I'm not mistaken, it's not Git. But whatever. Mercurial.
Yep.
Other huge companies wanted to be like Google, but the truth is, you're not Google. So you have another cultural contacts, another history, and other things. I don't want to say that it's a bad choice, for sure. I just want to say that it's a very complicated question, and there is no best answer. So. Depending on engineers who made the decision, if they take the responsibility to provide all proper tooling to support it in a reasonable way, why not? It can be any.
I'm also curious if a lot of the monorepos started like back in the days. Also, I think same thing with Adyen, where also IDs were not that smart, and they were also faster. Or people just use Vim, because they were quite old school, so they don't care about their IDE performance, and it's just a lot of developers that really don't want to change to just a more complicated. I think that's the challenge we're having as well in our company. Is we're trying to say, here's a different way of working, please adapt, and developers are like, no, we don't want to. So it's becoming a people problem now as well, I think.
This is an interesting aspect that we actually didn't discuss much. We've been interviewing tons of people today, and one of the things that we discussed a lot is how developers express their frustrations with imperfect developer productivity, and then people do measurements and surveys and what's not. But I don't think we touched on this aspect of hey, this is something that will improve your productivity, and the developers we're not going to change. We don't want to use that. Why do you think it is? They're engineers, people which are curious people by definition, love the technology, love adapting new things. Why would you think developers will say, no, you know what, I want to use this?
I can only speak for our case, and I can also specify, of course. But for us, it's mostly product teams usually have other things to worry about. You do have product managers or the customer breathing on your neck saying, why is this feature not working for me? I paid for this. You're not making it work. And it's the last thing they want to do at that point is start adapting a new technology, and then their whole workflow is their already broken workflow breaks even more. So they do have some trust issues. That's my perspective. But then I can also.
Yes, I fully agree that regular feature teams, they want to focus on their domains, deliver features, achieve their own goals, and use infrastructure that is just working. If somebody is adopting, I don't know, monorepo, and it's just working, that's fine. But if you need, I don't know, to participate in this transformation, people can be some kind of rigid, and it's pretty a valid case, I guess, because again, people, most of them, engineers, I mean, want to focus on their domains and not to solve infrastructure troubles. Like when you go to the office, you don't want to care like Wi-Fi working. It should be just working. So same for productivity tools and all of this stuff.
So I guess when we are talking about developer productivity tools, they should be simple, effective, user-friendly, and just work in order for developers to adopt them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think it's also, as a developer, it's hard to remember all the trade-offs when you're doing like a daily task. Like, so for instance, like what we call isolated builds has improved build times from like an hour to 15 minutes. But it made something that developers do locally, maybe once a week, which is, a bit slower. And so you feel that when you're doing that thing that is now slower, and you forget about all the benefits that you got from that, like reduced build time. You feel what you're working on right now, the problem you feel at the moment.
Yes, sorry, I just remembered when you said like the developer productivity tools should be easy and easy to use, like and tested and all that thing. I can definitely resonate with that, and it's also kind of ironic because I think our developer productivity tools are the most tested, most monitored, it's a bit of weird where developers are really, they write bugs, but they really don't want the software they use to have bugs. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, we hold others to a higher standard, I guess. Folks, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Elena, Sergei, Murat, thank you. And for you folks, remember, everything is a trade-off. And when you work on your own productivity tools, try to make them user-friendly and bugs-free, because developers are very pesky. You all stay tuned for more episodes of the Build Promotion Lab happening still in our second day of the DP Summit 2024. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.